Green Comedy. This is for July 18th, 2024, episode 232. Stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser Paul Green coming to you, documenting my journey as I pursue my dreams in the hopes that maybe just one little thing I say might be of benefit to anybody in internet land. So, I was in San Diego, California, just last night, American Legion. I'm really starting to doubt how bad that gig went. I watched this is a whole other story. I watched the footage of, and I don't know, I overestimated how well I did. Which, is probably not an uncommon problem for us comedians to protect our delicate egos. Oh, yeah, that went really great. What was interesting is when I was performing, I actually couldn't see the audience at all. It was really dark, and the way they had the stage set up, they just had one solitary spotlight that was at eye level, and it was just blinding my eyes. So I was really struggling to connect with the audience because I couldn't see them. I really couldn't make eye contact and sort of gauge what their energy was. And so tonight, last night technically, I took a look at the camera. I had a camera actually set up on stage pointing back at the audience, and I had it set to take in a lot of light. So the audience is actually crystal clear in the camera. It actually looks like it's daylight out, even though it was nighttime and it was dark out. But that's how much light this camera was taking in. So I could see the audience just fine through there. And there's this woman sitting literally front row center who looked like she just kind of had a scowl on her face. Like she was not liking anything I was saying. I did get her to break a couple of times. I did get a couple chuckles out of her. Now, I don't even know why I'm going to bring this up. This is kind of a weird angle to take about this. So what's interesting about this woman who's in the front row is I got to the American Legion pretty early. I got there almost 2 hours before the gig. And so I brought in all my stuff. I was set up. And then I was just hanging out at the American Legion, like out in their patio area. I bought a hamburger. They had like a grill out there. So I'm just chilling. And when I was outside, I passively observed that this woman was having a phone call. And the phone call, just from her tone, felt very intense. It just seemed like she was just having one of those conversations. Now, I didn't want to eavesdrop, so I did want to eavesdrop, but I also didn't want to eavesdrop. You know what I mean? It's like I could tell that the conversation was heavy. And honestly, I picked up very few sentences. And she was kind of out on the sidewalk a little bit, probably about 10, 15 feet away from me, but close enough to where I saw her and that she was having a phone conversation. And it felt intense. I'll just say it just felt like it was an intense, heavy conversation, like a conversation maybe she's having with like an ex, or maybe she's going through a divorce, or maybe this is like the breakup call, or it's, I don't know. And she was on that call for a while because I was just sort of meandering from the inside to the outside, just sort of walking around, killing time, clearing my head. And I just observed her on this phone call for a pretty long time, a good 30, 45 minutes. So I'm like, whatever this conversation is, it's very deep, it's very intense, and it seems to be going on for a little while. So she was the person front row center. So I'm watching me do this stand-up comedy routine. It didn't really occur to me that that woman was sitting in the front row center, again, because I couldn't really see the audience. Like, literally, I had a spotlight, like, blinding me, and it was dark. So it was, like, a double whammy on being able to really see and connect with the audience. But when I was watching the video, and I could see her very clearly, and she's like right in the middle of the frame for the entire video. It's almost like the camera was pointing at her. So her reactions are literally in the center of my frame. And so as I'm watching this playback and and like judging myself and being like, oh man, I didn't actually do that well. I don't really feel like I really had the audience on the same page with me. And it was a tough environment to begin. The opening act did zero time. He didn't tell any jokes. So I was the first one. And it was packed. There were a bunch of people standing. They were getting drinks or whatever. And so I don't know. It was already a tough environment. I came in. I got a couple of jokes in. But this woman, front row center, as I'm watching the video, I barely got a crack out of her. Maybe about 3 or 4 minutes in, I think that I said something that got a chuckle out of her. So as I'm watching this, I started to think, I'm like, well, how much of this is she just doesn't like my comedy, or how much of this is she just dealt with something right before the show. There was something intense going on that phone call, and because she was hardly engaged with me at all. Like, she wasn't really making eye contact with me. She was just kind of looking down, looking around. She would kind of chuckle, maybe kind of look up a little bit. And I was like, I wonder if she's actually just distracted. She just is, something's going on and she's not able to focus, which honestly kind of broke my heart a little bit. And now I was judging my material going, oh, I wonder if my material is the sort of the topics that I'm approaching. Maybe it, I'm talking about being single, and I'm talking about online dating, and then I'm talking about, that men don't really read online dating profiles. And part of me was just thinking, oh, I wonder if maybe she's going through something that has to do with, like, the end of a relationship. And so the last thing she wants to hear right now is some jackass comedian, talking about, men don't really care, what women write on their profiles and stuff like that. Which, by the way, I could be wrong about all of this. I am just totally speculating here. So I don't know. Sometimes it's just hard to know if sometimes it's just hard to know if you're funny or not. And I'll tell you, no matter how long I do this, no matter how many times I have a good show or a bad show, it's every single show is in its own vacuum, in its own silo, and could be a bad show or a good show. And you never know. You just never know until you have an audience in the room and you start throwing jokes in a microphone and see how they go. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm still sort of processing that. I literally just watched that footage, and have been over processing all of that. Speaking of that footage, I am so frustrated because what had happened is I filmed the show on 2 different cameras. One of them's my phone, and then I have this other camera. When I got back into town, I needed to take the file from my camera and obviously get it onto my computer so then I can upload it into Google Drive. Now, what happens is I plug my camera directly into my computer. And then I plug in my external hard drive. And then I just go to the files and I say, hey, this file that's on my camera, I'm just going to cut that and then paste it into this hard drive. So I do that. And the file transfer happens immediately, which, by the way, never happens. It usually, like, these files are big that my camera does. They're like 20 gigabyte files. And so I'm going, wait, something is wrong here. So, of course, I tried to click on the file on my external hard drive, and the file size is 0 kilobytes, but it's showing the file is there, and then it's just saying, hey, we couldn't play this file, it's corrupt, or whatever. Then I'm going, oh my gosh, what the heck happened? So then I tried to go back to my camera, and the file is gone because I cut and pasted. So my camera doesn't acknowledge it, and now my hard drive doesn't acknowledge it. And now I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, did I just lose this footage from last night? It's just gone, not on the hard drive and not on my SD card. So then what I have to do is see if there's a way that I can do like a recovery, like a file recovery. And then I end up finding this program online that ends up costing me $80. And then I have to plug in I have to find my card reader, take the SD card out instead of just connecting directly to the camera. It's just annoying. And so then finally I have to scan the SD card, see if this file recovery program can actually recover it. It takes about 2 hours to scan this SD card just to find the most recent file. The good news is, obviously, it was able to recover the file, and then I was just able to copy and paste it because it was there, and I'm going straight from the SD card straight to my hard drive, and it took a while to transfer because, like I said, it's like a 20 gigabyte file. Just one of those, man, just those annoying little things. You know, you think something's going to be easy, and it is easy, and I've transferred files from that camera to stuff 100 times. It's just that I forgot to use this little software interface and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden I have to spend $80 on a software program just to go find the file that actually already is still on the SD card, but my camera just doesn't know it's there. So all that happened. And then another incredibly upsetting, I shouldn't be upset. I know this, and I don't need you all to tell me that I shouldn't be upset, but it happened. So we have been running ads for our comedy shows, and we had a delightful troller who made this comment on one of our videos, and the comment was, oh my gosh. First of all, insulting. He made a joke about my buddy's weight, which to me is just so incredibly sophomoric and childish. I could not believe that this is an adult man. And then he goes on this rant about our video, because in the video, It's this video from our first live show where we had a woman from North Dakota who had braids in her hair. And Josh made some joke about how she culturally appropriated her hair, but she doesn't know any better because she's from North Dakota. And then I make some joke about like, yeah, or she doesn't know that it's Nordic. It's actually Nordic, which to me was me kind of saying, well, yeah, she appropriated it, but she appropriated it. Everybody's going to assume that Josh meant African, which he may have. But then I kind of, being a smart ass, was like, well, it actually wasn't appropriated from African culture. It was appropriated from Nordic culture. So anyway, our delightful troller, he actually is making that same point. It's not really appropriated. If you actually knew what you were talking about, you would, blah, blah. And I'm just going, oh my gosh. These effing self-righteous a-holes who just have to assume that they're just better, smarter, wiser than everybody else and just have to make these comments. So first of all, he's insulted my buddy's weight, which you just don't do. And chances are, if he had not done that, then maybe I just would have let the other thing go, like the cultural appropriation stuff. Although I already knew that. And I actually say that in the video, but he obviously didn't get that far. He was, not interested in actually, doing a little research about us. So he makes these comments. And I'm actually pretty, not happy with the fact that he did that. And, by the way, because I know that so many of these people are, trolls or whatever, it's like, who is this guy, first of all? And I looked at his Facebook profile, and he's very much a dude. He's not a troll, and he lives in Chandler, Arizona, and he's an ex-Marine, and he's like a marksman. He has, 6, past work histories that have to deal with, gun trainer. And literally after his name in his Facebook profile says parentheses guns. So it's like Nick so-and-so parentheses guns. And his profile picture is not a picture of him. It's a picture of Donald Trump. That picture, right when he stood back up after the assassination attempt. And then his profile's like, I am a conservative, right-wing, pro-gun, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. That's who we're dealing with here. By the way, I am not making a statement of all Trump supporters. I hate political rhetoric and political idealization and political cultism more than I can even possibly begin to express. And so I have zero interest in getting into any sort of political debate with anybody. So, but our good friend here took this spontaneous joke and took issue with it as though he made some comment that we are like social justice warriors. He saw that clip and then just automatically put me and Josh in some sort of far left whatever. Because obviously when you subscribe so strongly to a political idealization, you have no choice but to almost view everybody as A, either red or B, blue. And I guess that's the world you live in, and that's the paradigm. By the way, I'm making a lot of generalizations here. I probably shouldn't do that because that's actually my criticism of him. So I'm being hypocritical right now. Isn't that always the case, though? Aren't we all just a little hypocritical? But anyway, so he makes this comment, and the only thing I replied back was, "You're adorable." Because, that's all. I'm like, I don't even want to, go at it with this guy. So I'm just going to say something very smirky and very, almost condescending of, wow, you are adorable. What you just said is absolutely comical of just how incredibly, just the righteous indignation of his comment and his perceived intellectual superiority, that he's just so much smarter than me and Josh. We just have no idea that braids are not actually African. They originate from Nordic. so after that, after I say adorable, then he makes some smart-ass comment, something like, oh, well, I didn't mean to offend your little woke heart. So now he's using the word woke. So again, he's very clearly has decided that me and Josh are like the left-wing liberal like comedians, and that our whole platform is to push liberal, ideologies, or that the whole reason that Josh made that cultural appropriation joke was because we were the next thing he says is that you guys are clearly appealing to low IQ social justice warriors. just the idiocy of this man, just the pure stupidity that like he just absolutely cannot comprehend a world where Josh and I would just make a joke that has nothing to do with anything, that has no meaning or agenda or ideology about it. So I finally say say something like, I'm curious, why did you assume that when Josh said cultural appropriation, he meant Africa? Because we don't say Africa in the video. And then he said something sort of like, well, yeah, I guess you didn't say that, but if you're going to tell me that that isn't what you meant or whatever, just some sort of like snarky whatever. And I just said, well, you actually made a lot of assumptions. Assumption number one is that Josh and I are unaware that braids are Nordic. And if you actually watch the video, I actually make that reference right at the end of the video. And then I took a screenshot of the caption where I say it's Nordic. But I'm like, but you probably didn't get that far. I get that. Secondly, you made an assumption because he made the fat joke that he made about Josh, which was just so immature. He said something like, because Josh said cultural appropriation, and then he said, well, maybe you need to learn portion control, I think was his very funny joke. And so then I made it a comment like that, and then I'm like, then you made an assumption about this, and you made an assumption about this, and you're actually wrong on every single point. And then I kind of insulted him back a little bit, and I just said, and by the way, you making a fat joke about my buddy, totally not cool, bro. I used to make fun of people for being fat when I was in elementary school and had the maturity of an adolescent. Very nice, bro. Like, at this point, I'm kind of being like, dude, I am not impressed with this individual at all. And I ended the so now I'm kind of ranting a little bit and just kind of going off on him. And I ended the rant with something like, hey, but I see that you're well trained in firearms and you know where our next show is going to be. So we're going to go ahead and just back down and give you the win on this one. Good for you, bro, or something like that. Which obviously I meant as a joke, but also kind of not a joke, because I looked at this dude's Facebook, like, he is an intense guy and he's an ex-Marine and he is like a firearms expert and he's obviously right-wing and his profile says guns next to his name. So it's very clear that this guy has plenty of firearms at his disposal and plenty of military training. And to be quite honest, this guy could probably kick my ass. I'm just going to say it. The guy is, I mean, he's like a big, strong, thick dude. I mean, he is a military Marine. And I'm going, yeah, I probably wouldn't say this stuff to his face. But then again, he probably wouldn't say it to my face either. And he started it, which he did start it, by the way. So that was actually me sort of acknowledging, like, yeah, I think you're an idiot and immature, and I don't think that anything that you said is accurate. And then I also said, yeah, and Josh and I are not don't really have a political ideology. Nothing in our show is politicized. We don't have a left-leaning agenda in our shows, because he's calling us woke and social justice warriors and all that stuff, which, whatever. So anyway, his final response is just even more, just downright idiotic. I mean, I could barely even comprehend where his logic is stemming from. He says something like, well, first of all, I didn't say you guys were social justice warrior. I said that your comedy appeals to social justice warriors because, he said, when you said that she wouldn't understand because she's from North Dakota, that appeals to social justice warriors. Just like, what the hell is he talking about? That, I don't know. Again, you can't rationalize with insane people. That argument is just so absolutely beyond ridiculous. And first of all, that he actually seems to be of the opinion that we made that joke as some sort of like statement, like we were really letting this woman on stage know that she appropriated a culture, like as though when Josh made that joke spontaneously, that we actually meant it as some sort of statement of, like what a social justice warrior would do, and, go after like white people with braids because they're stealing African culture or whatever. There was actually a whole Dr. Phil episode about this, which is why I actually happen to know that braids are not actually originated from Africa. They're of Nordic tradition, because there was this Dr. Phil episode where there actually were social justice warriors on there getting upset about any time a white woman wears braids because they feel that that's appropriating African culture. And then they had this, I don't know who was on there. I don't remember whatever, but they actually had a black woman on there who was on the other side of the argument, and you kind of knew that they did that intentionally. And so this black woman was like, actually, no, the braids are not of African descent. They're of Nordic descent. And then she kind of went after the social justice warriors. I'm calling them SJWs. I probably shouldn't, because I don't know if they would identify themselves as that. So maybe that's not a good term to use. Again, I hate all of this political stuff. I absolutely hate it. You're on the left, you think this way. You're on the right, you think this way. And by the way, I totally realized that I did that earlier when I said this guy was a right-wing conservative with a Trump picture, and that checked out. So I am guilty of my own guilty of my own criticism. All right. So anyway, once he said all that stuff, and by the way, he actually did concede on the fat stuff, because he said, I said in my comment that Josh is also ex-military. And I think once he realized that Josh was ex-military, I think there's a bro code there, maybe. I'll have to talk to Josh about that. So I think maybe his bro code said, oh, that's military, I shouldn't be insulting him or something like that. But I was fair game. And then he made some comment like, yeah, you probably got punched in the mouth a lot as a kid for running your mouth or whatever. And I'm like, you mother effer, I did not run my mouth. I did not go onto your Facebook post and make some inflammatory, insulting comments. If anything, this guy probably hasn't been punched in the mouth enough, because he can probably kick most people's asses. So, he's kind of a bully. That's my take, is he's just a bully because he's kind of been bigger and stronger, and he has military training, and he has a lot of guns. So he probably doesn't get messed with a lot. So, the only way to really beat up a bully is to get a bigger bully, and that's probably not me and probably not Josh. But somebody else, maybe, Anyway, I am not condoning violence. So then the last thing that he says is he goes, oh, and by the fact that you think that I'm so mentally ill that I would actually kill you guys. Now he's referencing the joke I made about the fact that he's a marksman. He goes, the fact that you would make that just a few days after Trump's assassination. He brought in the assassination attempt on Trump into this conversation. That's how politically idealized he is. That, like, he actually thinks that we're having a political debate. Like, he actually thinks that that is what's going on here. That this is some sort of politicized, polarized, me and Josh are on the left, and we are pushing that left-wing agenda as social justice warriors, and he is the right-leaning conservative, needs to stand up for the conservative white person and just make sure that anybody who has the audacity to call braids cultural appropriation, I just cannot even wrap my head around being that ingrained in polarization that, you know, here's this random dude and he sees one of our ads in Facebook for our comedy show, and we put a little bit of clip where we're making a joke about cultural appropriation, and now he's referencing the Trump assassination. I just can't even, I cannot even comprehend being in a mindset like that. So anyway, that was enough for me. I just was like, all right, this guy is just, all I wanted to do was stand up for my friend. He called my friend fat, and F him. Like, seriously, bro. You don't insult people like that. I don't care who the hell you think you are. You don't effing do that. And that's my buddy. So I'm going to stand up for my buddy, and I'm at least going to insult his intelligence. And but he's too dumb to realize that his intelligence has been insulted. And I really hope I never meet this guy in person, because he would definitely win in a fight, most likely. But hey, you know, that's just not how I operate. So, but yeah, I got pretty worked up. I got to be honest. I got pretty worked up. It's been a little while since I've let an online troll, get me worked up. I've gotten pretty good at ignoring most comments. The thing about like YouTube comments, maybe even Instagram and TikTok, is those profiles are pretty anonymous. Like, you don't really know who's on the other side of those comments. Like, people have trolled me on TikTok. I go to their profiles and there's really nothing there. They aren't really revealing who they are. But this guy, he has a fully visible, like, I know his company. He like owns this, he owns a company. I know what it is. I know everywhere he's worked. I know his first and last name. I know what city he lives in. I know where he graduated college, because it happens to be the same school I graduated from. And I'm just going, okay, like, this is a real human being who lives in Chandler, Arizona. And, this guy is somewhere between 10 and 30 miles away from me at this very moment. And I don't know, just makes it a little more real and a little more like, I'm not going to let somebody make comments like that about a friend of mine who I really care about without me at least standing up. Not that Josh needs standing up for. I mean, he's also ex-military and can take care of himself. But you just don't do that. I it's just not okay. And so he got me in. He sucked me in to the vortex of Facebook comment wars. Oh my gosh. I used to be the one making the comments. I was such an idiot. People would make their posts, they would make their Facebook post, and then I was like, I know what to do. This is going to go very well. I'm going to be able to have a very effective conversation in the comments of a Facebook post. I guess I shouldn't be insulting other people's intelligence when I know so much better and did not do better. So anyway, that's been a point of high frustration for the last little while. I'll get over it. I always do. And I actually called Josh about this, and we have an idea of what we might do in response to this. I'm going to keep that a secret because I don't know if we'll do it or not, but we have some ideas on how to actually handle this situation in a way that might be comedic. Maybe not. We'll see. So we have some ideas. All right. So that is the update. I'm not sure if I'm as funny as I thought I was after watching the tape of my show last night. There's another big thing that happened that I totally forgot to brush on because I got all wrapped up in my feelings. Wow, this podcast has already gone really long. I usually don't talk this long. So, last night, after trolling back and forth with our good friend, I did an improv show. First improv show I've done in a while, and it's a brand new show with a new cast of people I'd never worked with at JP's. Oh man, I do not like being negative and critical. It was not great. It was not great. For a lot of reasons. I mean, it's not the worst improv show I've done. I've seen some pretty bad improv, but it was pretty clunky. It was not ran incredibly well or incredibly smooth. And that's almost torture for me because I was just in the cast and I was invited last minute as a guest performer. I got a text like on Tuesday saying, "Hey, do you want to come do the improv show on Thursday?" And I said, "Heck yeah." And so I don't know. I don't know if I should go into that too much because I don't want to hurt any feelings. That's not what I'm about. I'm just trying to be honest, as honest and as transparent as I feel is appropriate for the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. But, I mean, I did have some fun. There were some fun elements of it, and we did get some laughs, a couple big laughs. But like the overall flow of the show, there was just way too much downtime. Way too much downtime. It was ran way too slow. Just not a lot of energy, not a lot of getting the audience excited and getting engagement. And then by the time we actually got to playing the improv games, we were all a new cast as well. All of us had never played together. I think maybe some individual members of the cast had played with each other in other troupes, but there were 6 of us and a host, and the 6 of us surely had never all worked together. So it was not super great. And I'm a little disappointed. I wish that I was running the show. I think it could have gone a lot better. But man, it's hard. It is so hard to put on a thing. It is so hard to put a show together. It is so hard to get an audience in a room. It is so hard to get, as far as improvisers, it is hard to get a group of really talented improvisers who can all gel and work together. And because if you think there's not a lot of money in stand-up comedy, there is even less money in improv comedy. It is really scraping the bottom of the entertainment barrel in terms of financial abundance. Which honestly is why I initially when the owner of JP's approached me, he said, "Hey, you could do whatever type of show you want." And initially I'd thought about doing an improv show. And instantly I just felt this pit in my stomach of oh my gosh, that is just so freaking hard. It is so freaking hard to put on an improv show and find talented improvisers. And so I ultimately ended up doing the midlife crisis show with Josh, which has been so much fun, and it still incorporates improv, but it's not an improv comedy show. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of that. I don't know if they'll try again. We definitely need to improve a lot of things to make the show go better. But I don't know. I don't really know who's in charge. That was the other thing that wasn't clear to me, was whose idea was this? Who is sort of the boss? Who's the decision maker? It all felt just a little disorganized, a little thrown together. Which, by the way, I'm all about thrown together if you can deliver. But I don't know. So that was the improv show. Okay, man, this is really long. I had a lot to say tonight. So the last thing I've been doing is been talking about the 48 laws of power, and pretty much not really debunking, because I'm not really saying that these laws of power are not effective, but I have been saying that there are probably other laws that might lead to a more fulfilling outcome in life than utilizing these laws just for the sheer purpose of gaining power over another person. So tonight's law is destroy your enemy completely. Sort of the idea here is that once you create an enemy and let's say you defeat them in war or whatever it is, that you're better off just pretty much executing and annihilating everybody instead of like letting them live, instead of showing mercy, because if you show mercy, all it's going to do is they're just going to resent you, and then they're going to let that resentment build until they're in a position to then come and then take things back over. And chances are when they take back over, they will not be so merciful. And that's that's an interesting idea, and something that has been, that idea has definitely been played out a lot in movies and cinema. It actually made me think of Carlito's Way. I think that's the movie that it made me think of. If I remember right, Carlito's Way, I think it's one of those drug dealer movies. And Carlito, earlier on in the film, lets some sort of like rival gang member or something live instead of, executing him or whatever. And that, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, that's the guy who comes back and kills him. Played by John Lizzaguano. Oh, shoot. How do you pronounce that, guys? John Lizzaguano? John Lizzaguano? My gosh, that just sounds so wrong. I cannot think of how to pronounce that actor's last name. All right, not a great way to end. Anyway, if you're out there creating enemies and creating enemies that could potentially come back and destroy you, then yeah, maybe it's a good idea to destroy your enemies thoroughly. I'm just kind of a big fan of, maybe try not to make enemies. Am I being hypocritical again since I made an enemy of the internet troller? Wow. A lot of hypocrisy in the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast tonight, everybody. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. I have been talking a long time. All right, everybody. I hope that, man, I feel like everything I talked about was really negative. I said my show last night didn't go as well as I thought. I got trolled online. I lost my file. I had to go get it recovered. And then I had a subpar improv show. And then I don't like the idea of having to crush your enemy completely. All right, everybody. This is going to be a very negative, dark podcast from here on out. No, everybody, let me tell you something. All right. When you are on the road to your dreams, anybody who tries to tell you that it's going to be all bright sunshine every single day is absolutely leading you astray, and they're probably trying to sell you some supplements or a self-help seminar. I am just finding more and more that the process, the journey is so up and down, so up and down. And there are hard days, and there are dark days, and there are negative days, and there are great days, joyful days, beautiful days. And I'm finding the trick is to just love all of it and just embrace all of it and accept all of it. Like, oh yeah, today, kind of a crappy day. I got in it with an internet troller. That really upset me. Kind of had a wonky improv show, lost this file, watched some footage of a show that I thought went well, but after watching the footage, I got in my head and maybe it didn't go that well. Yeah. So what? So what? Tomorrow's another day. I am not discouraged at all. I'm not unhappy. I just had some negative experiences today and some experiences that were somewhat frustrating and in some case very upsetting. I allowed myself to get very upset by our good friend the troll, and that's totally on me. I have to take responsibility for my emotions. That is my choice, and I take full ownership of that. So, all right, everybody. I better wrap this up, otherwise I'll never wrap it up. So, everybody, just get out there and keep pursuing your dreams. I hope they're going well. I hope you're finding joy and peace and fulfillment on your journey. And if you also happen to be having some bad days or a few bad days strung together, I hear you and I see you. And sometimes it can really suck and just be so hard. But we just got to get through to the next day and see if the next day goes a little better. That's all there is. So, all right, everybody, keep at it. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, July 18th, 2024, episode 232. I love you so much. I will talk to you tomorrow.